Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Telemedicine Talks. As always, we have your host, Phoebe Gutierrez, and myself, Leo Damasco. And today, super excited to have our guest today, Hayley Smith. She is a functional nutritionist, fertility awareness practitioner, and podcaster. She is a founder of the Holistic Fertility Clinic and host of the Fertility Freedom Podcast, where she helps women learn to communicate with their body, understand, and overcome their fertility challenges. She is a functional nutritionist, like I mentioned, and fertility awareness practitioner with a master's degree in nutrition from the National University of Natural Medicine. So, welcome. Thank you for taking your time. Awesome to have you on.
Yeah, so excited to be here. Thank you, Phoebe and Leo. Can't wait to see what we could dig into.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's always an open book. But one of the questions we always like to ask is, hey, you're doing this, this holistic fertility clinic, you're doing telemedicine. That's how it ties in. But
Mhm.
really, we always like to hear people's story on how they got to where they are. Is this like, did
Yeah.
you see yourself doing this when you were growing up? Or is it just, how did you get to where you were?
By being insane is probably the most accurate answer. No, gosh, I did not come from a background of entrepreneurs whatsoever. I'm the first entrepreneur in my family, and we can get to dig into the challenges that came with that. But I grew up with a history of disordered eating and being really just hard on my body. And it led me to wanting to study nutrition. But it was coming from this place of wanting to control my body. But thankfully, what it blossomed into was, like, really do loving the medicine and being fascinated by the body. And when I was in school, I was always on the edge of my seat whenever anytime women's health was getting brought up or understanding that we could get pregnant and how the menstrual cycle works and, even pregnancy and lactation, I was just like, "Our body can do what?" It was gave me full body chills. So, it was really just a passion of what led me to following women's health, and I studied at the National University of Natural Medicine, like you said, out in Oregon, and I was very blessed to study under some of the top naturopathic doctors in the field, and I think it was just a random weekend, I was close to graduation, and I remember there was a flyer on the bulletin board of the school I was at that was like, "Fertility weekend seminar," and at that time, I was just eating up everything I could about the fertility field, and that ended up being a weekend about the Fertility Awareness Method, and that's where I finally learned for the first time in my life, I think I was in my late 20s, that women can't get pregnant every day of the cycle, and there's only a very specific window that we can, and my jaw was just on the ground learning this for the first time and understanding that everything we were taught growing up was mostly a lie, and there was so much fear-mongering about it. So that really lit my passion even further, and when is the reason I went on to get certified as a fertility awareness provider. And thankfully or not thankfully, whenever I graduated from NUNM, the naturopathic and holistic field is not regulated in a lot of ways, which I'm happy it wasn't because it gave me a lot more freedom. But it was also hard because there weren't a lot of job opportunities to go apply for. They were looking for a registered dietitian. I was someone who has my master's in nutrition. So it wasn't as streamlined as the traditional medicine field wants it to be. It was confusing. So thankfully, I was like, "Oh, I wanna start my own business." That sounds great. I wanna work for myself, having no idea what that actually meant or what being an entrepreneur really was really gonna require. But I started, I did something, and because of what I just said, a lot of my classmates did the same. We were all just trying to start our own thing, and very slowly, I saw them drop off. But for some reason, it's really just a story of you can't fail if you don't quit, which I think is what I attribute to my success in my practice now. And I kept just kinda getting these little winks from the universe that I was on the right path, and I was learning along the way. It was very much a bootstrap situation. So yeah, I think it's just my passion for women's health and learning that I really do like the entrepreneur and business side of it too. And it snowballed into what it is now. So that's the overview.
It's really interesting that you mentioned you had the idea and you basically almost jumped in the deep end first and started figuring it out after
Yes.
that. That's been a common kind of theme with the guests that we've been talking about. Phoebes. Just our most recent guest, actually, I was talking about mindset and getting over kind of that fear of doing something and following the dream. And she was saying just exactly like what you did. It's just, you just got to do it. You got to do your dream and do
100%.
it and then figure it out later, right? And I think especially where we are all at, we have the knowledge, the ability to figure things out, right? What was your biggest thing when you were standing there at the precipice of, am I gonna do this or not? What do you think your biggest kind of inhibitor was, your speed bump was before you were like, all right, this is what I'm going to do and I'm going for it.
One, I just want to echo what you said of like, I would tell anyone who's interested in starting their business, like, you will learn the most by taking action. But if you can do like, if you can squish down that time it takes you from the idea to taking action, like, that is going to fuel your success. I remember I was a week away from graduating and I was like making a website on Wix, like not knowing what I was doing, but just doing something, registering for a business, whatever that meant. But honestly, because it's like I started it, but then it's like I had to go get a job because I had no money. So it was a lot of one foot in, one foot out, back and forth.
Yeah.
And we can go as deep as you want with this, but it was really the narrative that I had growing up of like, you're not someone who's going to have your own business. Like we're not entrepreneurs. So it's really those limiting beliefs around my family system and not having the support that I could do this. And I think it was a mirror for myself too with like, did I really believe that I could do this? But there was this narrative of like, you follow the rules of life, you graduate college, you go get a job, then you get married, then you have kids. It was just and I took a wildly different path. And that came with a lot of challenges. But Phoebe, I think we've talked about this, like entrepreneurship, it's personal growth on crack. And that's been very true for me of as I've grown and become more comfortable with myself and developed the self-trust and self-confidence, my business has grown right alongside of that. And a lot of that for me to answer your question was unwinding patterns that I grew up with and that I absorbed starting from a very young age.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's this positive self-talk, I think. Another common theme, right? Again, I don't know. I don't know if it's timely, the universe just like confirming itself, but again, just the person we talked to right before you, same thing. Hey, it's a
Wow.
positive talk, despite all the external factors around you saying, no, you can't do it. And actually internal factors as well, right? Like there's this belief, a lot of us too. You're right. We're so ingrained in, hey, this is steps. You go from box A to box B to box C. And if you deviate, you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know. You're kind of
Yeah.
failure.
It's
But
terrifying, like differentiating from your family and like the people who raised you and to take a different path, like to be the first person who does that, it's terrifying. And it comes with a lot of challenges, but I found the most reward in it for sure.
it's
What I think,
amazing.
like traditionally, even in medicine, right? So traditionally building a private practice, you needed a facility, you needed all these supplies, you need all this equipment, you need all these things, right? And so I do think that sometimes people think, and that is a lot of what goes into this. Oh, you can't do it because you don't have the capital, you don't have this. But now with like virtual health and technology, I tell a lot of my clients, you start telemedicine, you start virtual because there's less overhead, you're able to reach more people, and you can still have that rewarding type of relationship with patients, like, especially like you have clients, gosh, all over the world, which I think is really cool. And if you went thinking about things like a traditional sense, you wouldn't be able to reach as many people, but also you would have limited yourself so significantly that, yeah, it probably would have been a lot harder from day one.
100%. And that's what I was saying. It's like good news, bad news that the degree I got, my master's in nutrition, like it didn't follow the traditional medicine path, but it gave me a lot more freedom because I haven't been limited by the state licensure at this point, which Phoebe, we've had a lot of conversations about, and there's good to bad in that too. But yeah, there's been freedom in it, and you just kind of have to be insane enough to chip away at it and, like keep going and see what comes of it.
In what state are you located in?
I'm currently in Michigan.
Got it, got it. And it's funny too, because I've been talking to a lot of naturopaths and holistic medicine practitioners, and they also mirror your sentiment about, yes, they love the freedom. And you kind of mentioned it before. Some states, some locations, you can't practice in, right? They won't let you
Mhm.
practice in. It's a challenge. How do you tackle that challenge? And how do you basically tackle there's pluses, but also the limitations that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been this balancing act. One, very clear upfront, like in my contracts of what the work is we're doing. And that it is essentially, I think the most legal way to say it is like it's like a coaching model. I'm not giving medical advice. I'm not prescribing anything. I am not diagnosing anything. So being really clear in that and just being really clear upfront that what I'm doing is recommendations. So contracts and like making sure the legality of that is where it needs to be. But to your point, this is how I met Phoebe because I'm practicing and like things are flowing and like it's great and I'm using social media to grow this clientele, but there was this question of do I have a stable foundation? meaning if I'm not the center of this business, can it grow? Or because I think, what I have found is in what I TikTok is my biggest stream of revenue and my clientele. There's going to be the people who don't care about your degree or your license or any of that. They want what works. But there's also going to be the people that feel like, what's your degree? Where are you licensed in? I was just curious of how could I just create that stronger foundation for myself as someone who's not having to practice under a regulation or a licensure. And talking about personal growth, somewhere along the way, I had this crazy idea of, well, I could be a doctor. I could go to medical school. And that would have been 20-year-old me would have never had that thought or just the belief that I could do that. And transparently, so I was talking to my therapist and it was just like, should I do that? Should I go back to medical school? I'm growing my career. I know that I love medicine. I know that I believe that I can do this. I grew up just getting the messaging of, oh no, you go marry a doctor, but you're not the doctor, but you should go marry a doctor. So getting to this point of no, wait, I could be the doctor. It was fascinating. It was oh my gosh, it was a huge breakthrough just for my personal growth. So that kind of led me down the path of oh my God, am I just going to go back to medical school or apply? And I was looking at MCAT things. It was the whole thing. And then I got to a point of do I want that for my personal life? Do I actually want to go to school for the next 10 years? So then I was exploring PA school and that's how I came across Phoebe. And she gave me this beautiful third door of way of doing things. And it really opened my eye to how I can grow this practice and give myself a stronger foundation. And a huge motivation of it too, to your point of the limitations that I'm currently up against of wanting to provide my patients more well-rounded care. Because I can't prescribe things or I can't diagnose. And just as an example, one of the biggest things in the fertility field that I'm seeing right now that's preventing people from conceiving and growing their family, just an easy example is thyroid disorders. And traditional medicine uses much wider ranges that don't actually serve women in the way that we want it to. So I was like, how can I provide my patients more well-rounded care and just keep everything under one roof? Because I was running into having to refer out, but then breaking the warm, heart-centered, passionate care that we've been able to provide. So I want to be able to diagnose. I want to be able to just give them the medication that they need without having to break this care. But I love it. What Phoebe kind of opened my eyes to of doing it this third way of creating a PC MSO, it's just opened my eyes and it feels just so much more in alignment of ways of doing things and follows my trajectory from the get-go of doing things my own way and being a rebel in the field, if you will.
I also think one of the things that we talked about too is as somebody who does this by myself and Leo who does things by himself, sometimes you just want somebody that you can talk to almost like a partner. And so
Yeah.
we're exploring it. It's you can get a nurse, you can get a physician assistant, or you can get
Yes.
a nurse practitioner. You can find people and then actually teach them. It benefits them what you're doing. They have the appropriate licensure to be able to do those things. But then you're also not isolated because it's sometimes being, a business owner and an independent contractor is a little isolating and you just want somebody to talk to. It was really sweet. I was in New Orleans with Ashlyn
Hmm.
a couple weeks ago and she's like, oh yeah, I've been talking to Hayley and it's just nice to get to talk to somebody who's there's no fear of, am I doing this wrong? Am I going to be judged? It's just you guys are getting to talk clinically and it's nice to have that sometimes.
100%. I mean, so when I had this grand idea of going back to medical school and becoming a doctor, one of the things that shifted my mind around, I was wait, that's still me doing everything. So now you're going to go be a doctor. You're going to have way more responsibility and you're going to be running a business. That's not conducive with this life I'm trying to lead here. Not to mention, it was a relief when I was okay, I'm not going to go back to school for the next 10 years of my life. But yeah, no, to your point, it's and what I was saying in the beginning, yes, I love being a provider. I adore helping women and my patients, but I also really like the business aspect of it. And I want to be in that CEO role. So being able to bring on other providers in this unique way, it gives me that collaboration because I don't know everything. I love collaborating with Ashlyn and being hey, I was just asking about a glucose monitor. Which one do you like? Where do you like to see your ranges? That's the best. And it serves our patients better because I can get one track minded too, but having that outside approach is everything. So getting to be the business owner, be the CEO, provide my patients and provide them more well-rounded care with other providers that I can collaborate with, that sounds like a dream come true.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. It's amazing. Probably a good call not to go back to medical school too. Bang for the buck nowadays
Having
too.
the belief that I could do it, I think that's what I needed. Because once I kind of had that thought stream, I was I showed up in my business differently. I was showing up
Yeah.
more confidently of, I could do this. But it was a big relief. And I was okay, I'm not going to do this. Thank goodness.
But that's a great point though. Just the belief, just the dream of having it.
Yeah,
Gosh, I don't know. Connecting it back again. That was another point. It was just having the positive belief or
that's
just
it.
that dream is a net positive even if it doesn't come through, right? So,
The
no,
belief that you
that's
can
great.
do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
'cause it shifted everything for me, and it just gave me so much more confidence. Maybe in the other lifetime, I will go be a doctor, but I'm so happy with where I'm at right now.
No, I think it's interesting because a lot of the clients I talk to, yeah, I remember our first meeting and you were like, "Yeah, should I go be a PA?" And I'm all, "No, I wouldn't do that if I were I love PAs. I
Yeah.
just don't you don't need to do all that." But half of it is, yeah, just understanding the right path, realizing kind of the way that you can actually execute on the thing that you're trying to accomplish.
Mm,
And then to your point, like feeling really confident in the work that you're doing, which one, I want to say out of all the different kind of fertility providers, I feel like I hear and I see the most success from you. And I'm not just saying that because
thank you.
I know I adore what you do, but I truly like I don't know how you do what you do, Haley. It is really cool to get to see. I was telling Leo before you popped on, like, got 4 positive pregnancy tests in a week.
Mhm.
Hey, that is very cool for somebody who has a small, holistic, private practice.
Yeah. I really appreciate that, and it is just the passion of the women's body and understanding what it can do and the belief that once it comes back to balance, like fertility, it's this natural extension. And listen, like I was just as I was telling you guys, like the winter time, there was kind of this stretch of like, no one's gotten pregnant recently. What's going on? But it's like just staying the course and like believing in the medicine is I'm so passionate about it. And yeah, gosh, there's been crazy stories. One of the women who were involved in that group before who conceived this past week, she was like, before she came to work with me, she hadn't conceived for 3 years, and then we worked together for 6 months, and she conceived twice. Unfortunately, the first one ended in a miscarriage, but she was like, "The fact that I conceived twice in 6 months, and I didn't conceive for 3 years, it renews my spirit and my love for this medicine, and it's yeah, it's the best." And yeah, I think something else that, Phoebe, you really helped me realize, and having gone through, because 'cause I've been interviewing PAs, really since the springtime. We're going very slow and intentional with the process, so we haven't hired one yet, but what I've also realized and opened my eyes to is, like, I'm offering something that they actually can't. So it's just different skill sets. And there are, which I think is so cool, of like PAs and NPs that I'm talking to, like they're so hungry to understand this medicine and like they don't have the skill set yet. So it's not like one person needs to have everything, but again, Phoebe, like what you opened my eyes to is like, can we create this whole puzzle with the skills that they have of like being able to prescribe and doing the medication when it's necessary? Because there's a time and place for medication. Yes, I run a holistic clinic, but like I'm not gatekeeping any medication for people who need it. And whenever we can combine in the functional lab work, the gut work, the hormone pathway work, that more holistic approach, it's just the best. It's like it's so beautiful and it's well rounded, and that's whole person approach that I'm after. But it's just eye opening, and I think gave me that confidence boost too. Of there are PAs and NPs who are hungry to get out of the system, out of that traditional medical system, and they're like, "Yes, please tell me what you know, because something is missing here." So that's been really eye opening too.
Yeah, it's funny, and Leo can probably speak to this too, just because we work with a lot of, the interesting thing is when providers jump out of the traditional setting and they try to go private practice, they're faced with I have a client right now who women's health clinic. She originally started it because of her own health issues and
Yeah.
frustration with not being able to find a provider locally and all of those things. And then even with her doing all this training, getting up to speed, doing all this stuff, she still is getting patients every single day where it's like, I don't actually know what to do in this instance
Wow.
because
Yeah.
there's this condition or this condition. And it has been this really interesting thing where I've been talking to her. Leo's her collaborating physician, but she said, I also just want to talk to other people. So to me, it's this beautiful thing where you see like providers really trying to learn this other side of medicine, which is a lot of like, how do you balance the hormones? How do you
Yeah.
take all of these conditions and map them on top of each other so it reaches a person's like ultimate goal, whether that's having a baby or being able to sleep again or getting to have sex with their husband again or
Yeah.
all of those things, which I think are so interesting. But to your point, it's been almost like not a one size fits all. It's like you do need to have the conversations, like the peer to peer provider conversations to learn those things
Yeah.
because a lot of it comes with experience. A lot of like the older physicians, I don't want to say older because that just makes it sound like
Oh,
they're old. I know, experience, seasoned, mature. We use mature. The more experienced providers in the female space are like, oh no, I know exactly what to do because they have that lived experience, which I think is really interesting and important. But sorry to go down my women rabbit hole.
No, this
Sorry.
is great.
No, but for me, I think that's what makes women's health so interesting and what makes female providers so interesting because they like every provider, regardless of what they say, or at least that I've met on the female health side, has really tried to focus on that root cause of like, what
Yeah.
is causing this thing? And it's turned into like, well, there's all these things because of the women, female bodies.
Oh, yeah. Complex. Totally. And as you're saying, I'm like, I wonder, I was like, did this all shift in 2020 with the pandemic where, and again, just what you guys are providing us providers is just, it's such a gift because whether it was the pandemic was the start of it or not, but I think it's coming from both angles of like providers are fed up with the traditional system, but then also like patients are demanding more. They're demanding more conversation versus like 10-minute visits. They're demanding like root cause answers. A lot of patients who are coming into my clinic, like it's a collaboration. They have done their TikTok homework. They have done all the research they can. They're wanting someone just to come in and like clear the noise and streamline it for them. And that's what I see a lot of my job as. But it's an exciting time for the medical space because again, you guys are providing this third door for so many of us who want to have a private practice where we're like, we're going to do this our way. We're going to treat patients the way that we want them to. And especially women who have been so dismissed. Endometriosis, for example, just to give a concrete example, has been just such a big topic in my clinic recently. Like on average, it takes women 8 to 10 years to get diagnosed, which is insane because they're being told their period pain is normal whenever they're like hunched over and nauseous, like it takes them out for the entire day. It's insane. So just being able to have the medical providers or the practices shift in this way to just doing things how they should have always been done, it's a really exciting time. And I think it's really come from, again, providers being fed up, but then patients just demanding more and just like they're not going to stand for the care that they've been given anymore, which
Yeah.
I'm like, hell yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah, and too, I think that the cash pay telemedicine market has really kind of opened people's eyes of like, oh, wait, I can pay cash and actually, almost like a la carte services that I need. But yeah, to your point, I have clients that I want to be able to spend 2 hours with a client if I need to, or a patient.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever feel the confines of all of that stuff. And like at the end of the day, like it'll shake out. And it's like, to
Yeah.
me, I think that's the way that healthcare should be provided. And I don't know, I always joke, like I've been blessed. I've worked with physicians my whole adult life. So I have a very big bias on I don't go to Kaiser very often. Right? I get my labs paid for, I go to Kaiser. The rest of it, like last night, my son wasn't feeling well. Leo, like, let's talk to Leo. I have, so many clients that if I need help with something, I was talking to one of my other female doctors and she was like, you need testosterone and here's this, here's that. Go get your, I wish other people got to experience the like
Yeah.
honest, raw medical advice that so many physicians aren't able to do because they're so nervous and in that confine of a protocol or an insurance loop.
Yeah. I think this opens like another can of worms. And what we're describing, like, it's not perfect because I really want to respect and honor that some people can't pay cash pay, but it opens up this whole other conversation that you guys probably are more well versed in than I am, but of just insurance. And I think it's another thing that I see people getting fed up with is just the insurance system and how a lot of it is just such a scam. And people are like, let me just go pay for what I can. Or people who have insurance who are like paying more than people who don't have it. Like it's, again, I don't know. It just sounds really messy and really messed up. So yeah, it's not perfect, but I see a lot of it shifting and it's exciting.
yeah, it's nice. It was almost like a perfect storm, right? The pandemic proved the concept, right? And almost out of necessity, the concept
Mhm.
had to blossom. But entrepreneurs like yourself took that concept and said, hey, there is that missing piece, right? Like you were saying. And it's great to see because now providers all across the board are getting into literally into people's home,
Mhm.
having that conversation and being able to see people in where they are. And people love it, right? They don't want to go
Yeah.
to a clinic and wait 20 minutes and even just find a clinic, depending on where they are, right? Your reach is probably way bigger than what it is when instead of throwing up a shingle on a building, right? So
It's amazing.
it's
Yeah, I
amazing.
think my furthest client is in Saudi Arabia, which has been pretty exciting. So
Shut it.
exciting. Yeah.
Really? That's
Yeah.
super cool.
It's the best, and again, it's been one of the biggest blessings of just the route I've taken of not being limited by licensure and confines. So yeah, literally seeing people all over the world, which has been the best.
Great. Hey,
Yeah,
we are wrapping up on time. This is great. But
yeah.
one question we always like to ask too is, hey, going back to yourself, just graduating, right? What would you tell your graduation plus one self? Anything. If you could tell them anything, what would you tell them?
It goes back to what we said in the beginning, and it's so simple, but truly the most powerful thing of you have to start, you have to take action, and you can't fail if you don't stop. And again, that's been the story of my
I love
journey
that.
and what I would tell anyone who's interested in having their own business and practice.
It's great. I love that. Phoebe, any
Mhm.
closing thoughts?
No, just I'm really excited to see where your practice lands and have
Thank
you
you.
grow. And it has been just an amazing journey watching you explore all the angles and think through all the things so deeply and carefully and really doing it, in my opinion, the right way, the thoughtful
Yeah.
way. Yeah, keep going, Haley. I love it. I keep saying, I
Yeah.
love my Instagram updates.
Speaking of that, yeah, how do they find you? What's your socials?
Oh, thank you. TikTok and Instagram on HayleySmith.HFC, Holistic Fertility Clinic. We did just start a official clinic page, Holistic Fertility Clinic on Instagram. But those would be the best places that people can find me and follow along. And
Nice.
I just have to say, Phoebe, you have been so much part of the success in this past year and growing in the way that we have. Again, just give me this third door and belief that things can be different and I don't have to go back to medical school for the next 10 years of my life. So what you guys are doing is just so incredible of helping us stay compliant and we're not going to get in trouble for doing things the way that we're going to do. But I tell everyone, I was like, no, I'm like working with this badass in California who's going to be so compliant, but also she works for us and she's going to find the third door. And I think just what you're doing for the medical field is incredible. So thank you
Phoebe,
guys
that
so
should be on your
much.
business card.
I was like, she's such a badass.
Right, right.
She's gonna make sure you're legal and that you're compliant. But like, she's also gonna stand up for you and make sure that you're not getting screwed over. And I'm like, it's my type of people. So,
Well, cool. Thank you so much for your
oh, thank you
time.
guys. I
We
love
totally
this.
appreciate it. And yeah, follow Haley at her socials and check her out. To everybody out there, thank you for listening, and we'll check you out next time. Hello.
Thank you.